3 things you should do for your significant other when the world seems out of control. You have someone you love dearly who loved you in return. Life looks good. Until it doesn't. Disaster strikes. Sudden upheaval has spun your world out of control. Everything you've worked so hard to build is about to come crashing down around you. Even if the crisis has absolutely nothing to do with the two of you, this kind of upheaval can put an immense strain on a relationship. Tempers flare, unresolved issues crop up all over again. If you're not careful, things can fall apart very quickly, which is why it's so essential to do the next 3 things immediately. Become a safe place. Regardless of whether this crisis is theirs or something affecting you both, you're going to have to take the same approach. You need to be someone the other person can count on. You're here to be their partner, even in the tough times. The other person needs to feel like they can come to you with what they're feeling and thinking entirely without judgment. If there was ever a time to be your loving best, it's right now when you hold them through this upheaval. Stay calm. Once they trust you to be there for them, your next goal is to master your own emotions. You might be upset, angry, sad, worried, anxious, or a whole host of other things. You can even express that you're feeling these things to your loved one. They'll probably appreciate knowing they're not the only ones feeling this way. But you absolutely cannot be reacting emotionally. Here's where you have to clamp down on your gut reaction and instead find keen interest in what's going on around you. Having a clear head is one of the best things you can give them right now, but you'll never manage if you're over-emotional. Help sort things out. Now that you've gotten a handle on the facts, it's time to work together on an action plan. Your next goal? Be the one to strike a balance. Help them to see the situation clearly. Be someone who can give a little perspective. Once a plan's made, be ready to help carry it out. The world might feel like it's spiraling out of control, but with these 3 steps, you can protect your relationship with your significant other and show them you are truly a team going forward. By doing this, you're reminding them just how much you love them and how much you're on their side, especially now when times are tough. 5 steps to dealing with upheaval in your life. Upheaval comes in many forms. To some, the crisis might be small, a fender bender in the parking lot causing minor damage to their car. Others face even more significant challenges, such as an illness or the loss of a job. Regardless of the cause, dealing with upheaval is much the same whether you're in the midst of a life-changing event or suffering something smaller. Believe it or not, any turmoil can be managed in just 5 steps. Assess. There's no way you can move past the catastrophe unless you have a clear idea of what's going on. Take note of the details in the problem, and then list what might be best termed as a damage report to get a scope of the situation. The key here is to do this assessment calmly and clearly, which is why the next step is so important. Calm yourself. Most people, when amid upheaval, will react rather than respond. Remember, a lot of emotion can get packed into a reaction, such as fear, panic, worry, frustration, or anger. Reacting means giving in to those emotions, but a response is a reasoned-out response and only happens when you have those emotions under control. Once you've reached that point, you're ready to figure out your initial reaction. Go long. You start by taking the long view. If you focus on short-term goals, you're going to get too caught up in the panic response again. On the other hand, reminding yourself of the ultimate goal means you're stepping back and seeing how this setback fits into the grand scheme of things. Remind yourself you're still on track for the ultimate goal. This disaster is only a setback, not a stopping place. Communicate. Here's where you need to remember you shouldn't be doing the next steps alone. Build your team around you. Find mentors and friends who can advise, and a tribe who's going to have your back. Create your network and then let them know what's going on. Act. Now, together you need to find a solution and put it into action. Make use of your team from the previous step. Keep your focus on the goal and figure out the best way to move forward. Remember, every upheaval has a way out. Some factors might be beyond your control, but you can still manage the things within your grasp. If you keep your head, you'll be fine. The key is to be patient and to focus on the next best thing. 5 things you can do to help your child during an upheaval. The world can be a daunting place, especially to a child. We work hard as parents to protect them from the big, bad, scary things. The problem is, much as we'd love to keep our children cocooned in a safe space where nothing can touch them, they tend to be every bit as aware of upheaval as you are, especially when the crisis is something too large to hide. A child can't help but be mindful of a natural disaster, and as much as you try to hide it, they catch on pretty quickly when something isn't right in the home, even if they don't know the details of the pending divorce, the sick parent, or the lost job. So how do you help your child best during upheaval? Start by doing these 5 things. Validate. Emotions are real, and there's no right or wrong in what your child is feeling right now. By reaching out to them and letting them know it's okay for them to feel what they're feeling, you help your child to feel heard. Embrace routine. During an upheaval, it's hard to maintain your daily schedule, but children need routine now more than ever. Whatever's going on, try as hard as you can to keep as much normal as possible. For example, try to eat meals around the same time every day if you can, or create a new routine suitable for current circumstances. Communicate appropriately. As mentioned before, kids know when things are wrong. Rather than going silent, be honest. Let them know what's happening in a way that keeps in mind what's appropriate for their age. Most important, answer their questions. Loosen up. Play is a great way to ease tension. Even kids who might have felt like they were too old to play will love a chance to do something fun. Remember, you need to be sure to play with them, so grab a frisbee or pick up some crayons and get to it. Breathe. Teaching your child to meditate or do something calming, such as Tai Chi or yoga, gives them the tools they need to calm down and return to the moment when they start to grow anxious or scared about what's going on. Doing these activities with them does wonders for your mood as well. If your child's become too aware of what's going on, don't despair. They're a lot more resilient than you give them credit for. The biggest thing they need right now is to know your love is assured. Given time, the rest of these steps will help considerably. And of course, if your child needs a little extra help, don't be afraid to take them to a counselor who is specially trained in helping a child make difficult transitions. 5 things to do right now if you're experiencing an upheaval. Life is uncertain. One minute you're going along, doing what you always do, and the next, everything has come crashing to a halt. Now you've been left floundering, and everything in your life has become overwhelming. You're experiencing upheaval, and you don't know what to do. Thankfully, there are several things you can do right now which will help you gain a clearer head and a better ability to cope, regardless of the disaster. Try these quick tips to help you regain your equilibrium. Put on the brakes. When things leave you feeling like you're running in all directions at once, the last thing you need is added responsibility. It's time to start protecting yourself by saying no when asked to shoulder more. This is you taking control where you can. Vary your day. It's so easy to fall into doing whatever feels comfortable when you're in upheaval. Let's face it, you want comfort, and there's something soothing in repetitious action like watching TV, snacking obsessively, or sleeping. Even good things like working through your inbox, exercising, or cleaning the house can become unhealthy if that's all you're doing. The goal here is to mix up your schedule. Only allow a set time for each activity before you need to switch to something else. Drop the device. Speaking of obsessive, set the phone aside. You don't need to keep checking social media or your text messages. Give yourself a break. More often than not, the feedback of others is only going to invite you to obsess about the crisis and not offer much in the way of solutions. Be kind. Attitude is everything. If you're feeling the disaster, start looking for ways just to be more helpful to those around you. Doing this takes your focus off your negativity and builds positivity in someone else's day, with the side benefit of raising your mood at the same time. Take care of you. When you become disaster-focused, it's very easy to neglect yourself. Now more than ever, you need to eat right and get enough sleep. Taking time for yourself will help you reduce some of the physical strain an upheaval can cause. Also, feeling better physically can lower anxiety and stress. See your future. Grab a mental picture of where you want to be in the future. Hang on to this image. By reminding yourself you're going to get through this and be able to accomplish your future goals, you're acknowledging the current situation is temporary. Unfortunately, not every upheaval can be solved. Most are out of your control from the moment they hit. On the other hand, you still have the ability to control your actions and the steps you take afterward. By practicing these techniques, at the very least, you're going to feel stronger and more confident about your next steps. It's here where you'll find peace of mind. 5 ways to experience personal growth even in an upheaval. When you're in upheaval, you tend to hit survival mode pretty quickly. Your life becomes focused on just getting through the day. Beyond that, you don't have the time or energy to care. Now more than ever, you need to take advantage of what time you have for personal growth. When we're challenged is where we rise to the occasion the best. During upheaval, our minds become busy and we start thinking more. It's a great time to take advantage of a mind made flexible by circumstances and learn something new. In short, this is an excellent time for personal growth. Furthermore, the act of bettering yourself gives you a focus, something you can control right now at this moment, helping your mental state. It's all about attitude and the idea you can keep growing even now. How? You learn to embrace adversity. There's no doubt upheaval can make a mess of your life, but as you dig in and start looking for solutions, you're going to discover something about yourself. Adversity brings out your best, forcing you out from complacency to find new solutions. With an open-minded attitude, you can come to embrace adversity. You become more adept at challenges. A crisis demands creative solutions. After all, if the status quo had been working, you wouldn't be where you are now. In the long run, what this means is if you're going to get better at brainstorming and seeing solutions where you haven't before. You become better at seeing the opportunity. Once you look past the disaster itself, you're going to start seeing a chance to shine. There's a great deal of opportunity in upheaval if you can maintain an openness to trying new things and adaptability when it comes to rolling with the punches. Developing this skill now means you're never going to miss an opportunity again. You cultivate positivity. How can you possibly make it through a crisis if all you're doing is focusing on the negative? If you can discover the ability to find the positive and to keep an upbeat attitude even when things are going wrong, you'll be able to stay positive no matter what life throws at you. You develop more empathy. You can't go through these kinds of tough times without learning something about how hard life can be. By leveraging this into empathy, you'll gain more compassion for those around you. Wow, this is a lot. Imagine the newer, stronger version of yourself developing even now. How exciting to think you'll be coming out of this crisis more robust and better than ever before. 6 ways to protect your mental health during a sudden upheaval. You thought you were doing okay. You likely were. You'd faced several challenges already and came out on top. Then it happened. A sudden upheaval. In an instant, your entire world changed and you were called upon to react to a situation which sapped your energy, drained your resources, and left you feeling as though mentally you'd just taken a battering. This is a tough scenario, one which can be pretty hard to bounce back from without some work to protect your mental health during the upheaval. Let's look at some ways to accomplish this. Be unsettled. When you're caught in the chaos, it's normal to feel like you don't know which end is up. You can't possibly know all the answers or the next best step when you're still coping with the realization things have gone horribly wrong. You need to give yourself a break. Get in the moment. What's going on right now? When upheaval strikes, it's normal to start worrying about a lot of long-term ramifications. Yet worry can put you into an anxiety loop very quickly. To avoid this, try mindfulness or meditation to put yourself back in the now. Deal with what's right in front of you first. Slow down. Speaking of doing what's right in front of you, sometimes it can feel very overwhelming to push yourself back into motion. Try taking things in short bursts instead. Do the next thing in front of you for 5 minutes. Then take a breath. Collect yourself and do it again. Soon you'll regain your momentum. Accept your emotions. We can be hard on ourselves when it comes to what we should be feeling. Here's where it's essential to feel exactly what you're feeling right now. There is no right or wrong here. Get support. Don't go it alone. Isolation leads to anxiety and depression. Reach out to your friends and family. Talk to them about how you feel. They are your tribe. They're there for you. Allow them to help. Give yourself time. Not everything goes according to a specific timeline. You'll drive yourself crazy if you think there's a specific time you need to be done grieving or being angry about something. Truly, you need to do you. Take the time you need to feel all right. The good news? You can and will be okay so long as you stay the course and do the work to protect yourself. But even if you find you can't, that doesn't mean all is lost. Sometimes we all need a little help to sort this kind of thing through. It's okay to reach out to a friend or even a counselor to help get yourself back on track. 6 ways to deal with the upheaval at work. If you've ever had things fall apart at work, you're already quite familiar with upheaval at work. It happens every time you get a new boss, or they start making significant policy changes. Though let's face it, even those small changes in the office can create tension and make it difficult to get things done. Dealing with upheaval at work isn't hard though, so long as you keep your head. The next time things get complicated, try these tried and true methods to get you back on track. Stop. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do in a crisis is absolutely nothing at all. You need to stop and think, as an emotional reaction is going to cost you in the long run. Start by taking several deep breaths and think about what to do next. Not to mention you'll win some bonus points if management notices you're the one keeping calm and acting rationally. Stay positive. Getting caught up in the negative isn't going to help anything. You'll only spiral down into a cycle of blame and complaints, ending on a lot of finger-pointing or negative self-talk. This is the time to pull out a Pollyanna attitude. Sure, things went wrong, but if you can keep your optimism, you're more likely to find the opportunity in all of this, which is worlds more productive, not just for you, but for your coworkers as well. Learn from the situation. Speaking of opportunity, any upheaval is fodder for a learning experience if you let it become one. Step back and look at the whole situation rationally. Look for the lessons, and then ask yourself how you can apply them to prevent the next time. Talk to your coworkers. At work, you have a rich resource just waiting to be used. Draw on the talents and abilities of those around you. By banding together and brainstorming, you're more likely to come up with a viable solution than you ever would be working alone. Eye on the prize. You have a particular goal in working where you do. Remember this goal now. What can you do at this moment which will put you back on track toward your goal? How can the upheaval maybe benefit your long-term goal? Now might be the time to act. Expect disaster. Well, of course things are going to go wrong sometimes. Situations change, and in any workplace, there are many moving parts to keep things going smoothly. By being prepared for the things which could go wrong, you can head off a lot of what might be an upheaval in the making. 6 tips for protecting your career through major upheaval. When things go wrong at work, your first thought is going to be, how can you protect your job? After all, without your career, the rest of your life can very quickly succumb to various pressures, not the least of which is financial. The problem is, sometimes, even when you're doing your best in a job you love, your workplace might suffer a major upheaval. Companies go bankrupt, the economy shifts, a natural disaster or pandemic might even take away your ability to do your job at all. What then? You start with keeping your head and following these 6 tips. Bring up the energy in the room. Optimists wanted. When things are going wrong, which affects your work life, don't be that one person sitting around and complaining. Instead, by staying positive and looking for the best outcomes, you're already ahead of the curve. Lend a hand. There's lots to be said for people with enough gumption to take the initiative and offer to help out when they see an opportunity to do so. This kind of willingness to jump in will be remembered when things straighten out again later. Show creativity. Think outside the box. Solutions are always welcome, especially during an upheaval. These are the times when doing what's always worked before not only has stopped working, but might even be making things worse. Being able to adapt to new ideas and find solutions that fit the crisis are invaluable at times like this. Adapt. Upheaval calls for the ability to let go of the old ways and adapt to the new status quo. You can't be floundering right now. This is the time to rise to the challenges being presented in this new world. Show empathy. Change is hard. A crisis makes everything much harder. Now is the perfect time to reach out to your coworkers. How can you help them to adapt? Hang in there. Finally, the most important thing is to stay the course. If you can persevere even under these conditions, such dedication will not go unnoticed. For this reason more than anything else, you need to dig your heels in and flat out refuse to quit doing what you know is right, no matter what happens next. Remember, upheaval happens, but it doesn't have to derail your career completely. Being smart and savvy is what's going to keep you going, even when the going gets tough. Hang in there and you'll be just fine. 7 things you can do to create happiness during the toughest of times. Upheaval drags everyone down. A crisis wears on a person, eroding mood and destroying optimism. As you go into survival mode, it becomes harder and harder to hold on to any kind of joy at all. Instead, your days are taken up with emotions such as worry, anxiety, depression, anger, frustration, and fear. It seems like a pretty rough time to find happiness, doesn't it? Yet more than ever, this is precisely when you need happiness most. It's a positive outlook and a great deal of optimism which is going to get you through these tough times, which means it's up to you to create this happiness as soon as possible. Why not try these tips? Take a walk. Physical exercise promotes mood in tremendous ways. Seize the chance to take a break for a few minutes when you can and step outside. Walk at an even pace, fast enough to raise your heart rate a little for the best results. Find a distraction. You can't focus on the crisis every minute of the day without driving yourself crazy. Occasionally, you need to give your brain a break. Try reading a book, watching a show on TV, doing a puzzle, or engaging in a hobby for a little bit. Eat something good. It's so easy to forget regular meals when you're in the midst of a crisis, but low blood sugar affects mood in negative ways. Also, if you're just grabbing snacks, junk food can make you lethargic and inhibit your ability to think clearly. As much as possible, try to maintain a regular schedule for meals and eat healthy. Fix something. Your world is out of control and can't be fixed easily. Help your mood by finding something you can correct and exert control over the situation. Why not do the mending you've set aside? Or do one of those little home repair jobs you've meant to tackle? Sleep. Lack of rest does affect mood negatively. Even in a crisis, you need to sleep. Stay on your sleep schedule as much as possible. Hang out with friends. It's not mentally healthy to isolate. Make time for friends, even if only for a short phone call. Touching base with people who love and support you will do wonders for your mood. Do something. Act. Nothing makes you feel more helpless than inactivity. It might be you're not able to do what you normally would during this upheaval. Instead, find the next best thing you can do and focus on that for 5 minutes at a time until it's done. Remember, happiness can't be forced. Some days you're just going to feel what you're going to feel. But by paying attention to your mood and working to improve it, you set yourself up for the greatest success. 8 techniques to come out on top after an upheaval. Illness strikes, a loved one dies, the economy shifts, you lose your job. Let's face it, upheaval happens whether you're ready or not. For some people, they crumble at the first hint of disaster. Others somehow manage to still succeed even when things look the direst. Which are you? Use these 8 proven techniques and you'll come out on top every time. Give yourself a break. Why are you expecting so much of yourself right now? When in crisis, recognize you're not going to have all the answers, at least not immediately. Take a step back and acknowledge this is hard and confusing, and cut yourself some slack. This will help you relax and start thinking. Anticipate fear. Know this is scary. Upheaval is all about sudden change, and you're going to find yourself floundering initially. Fear is reasonable in this kind of situation. It's what you do with this fear, which is what counts in the end. Remember, anticipating doesn't mean caving into fear, but only acknowledging it's there. Breathe. Now, before you do anything, take a deep breath. Let it out slow, then take another. First reactions usually aren't the best ones. By taking time to breathe, you're giving yourself a minute to figure out what to do, not to mention taking in a little added oxygen so you can think. Accept. Okay, this wasn't what you wanted. Rather than fight against the change caused by the crisis, try embracing it as an opportunity to learn from the situation and try doing things a different way. Rewrite the narrative. This continues the idea from the last point. What words are you using to talk about the crisis? Is this a disaster or an unscheduled adventure? Look for a more positive way to redefine the situation. Drop the negativity. Speaking of positive, what's your self-talk right now? Don't get caught up in negativity here either. Instead of beating yourself up, praise yourself for your courage in facing the upheaval with a positive attitude. Practice change. Get used to the idea of doing things differently by practicing change in small and safe ways. Adjust how you do something every day, such as changing the route you drive on the way to work. This helps your brain build flexibility and readies you for the extensive changes necessary to handle this crisis. Know you've got this. Most important of all, remind yourself you've been through other disasters and survived. You're going to be just fine, so long as you hang in there. Success, even in the wake of disaster, never happens by chance. It takes intentionality to come out on top. By learning these 8 techniques, you'll not only survive the upheaval, but you'll become one of those people who thrive on the adversity.